Every once and again here on Till We Make It, I like to tackle an idea that comes in through our Twitter feed, and this happens to be one of those episodes. What do you do when a fan gets loose in the ring? I am Mike Quackenbush. This is Till We Make It, and in the course of your pro wrestling career, you might come across that unusual circumstance where, in the midst of your performance, all of a sudden a wild fan appears in the middle of the ring, and you're tasked with making a very difficult decision. When I was breaking into pro wrestling, we were still operating under kayfabe 1.0, which in hindsight is probably quaint at best and maybe absurd at worst. And back then, the rule was this: if a fan got loose in the ring, you were going to give them the beating of a lifetime to teach them this lesson: don't get in the ring. You would shellac them just so they remembered, don't get in the ring. Luckily for you and I and everybody else, the days of kayfabe 1.0 are behind us now. And I think this old rule of wrestling is ripe for a revisitation. I want to share with you my approach should a fan ever get loose in the ring. I think our responsibility as performers is to subdue the fan and hold them, restrain them until security arrives. I do not think that we need to put a beating on this fan. I think if that's likely to happen, let the security people do that backstage, and then they can deal with the ramifications of those assault charges. We live in an incredibly litigious society, and you are doing yourself no favors by putting a beatdown on some fan who gets loose in the ring. Not just because we can all think of at least one story where that's gone horribly wrong, but also because, as a general idea or governance for pro wrestling, it does seem wildly outdated, does it not? My current opinion on the matter is not embedded in kayfabe 1.0. In fact, it is informed by something I learned from outside the world of wrestling. And it is a somewhat more compassionate view on all the other humans we interact with on a day-to-day basis. It goes like this: every person that we encounter out there anywhere in the world is waging some kind of battle against an issue that we will never know and may not even be able to understand. While I certainly agree 100% with the idea that a fan should never interject themselves into a pro wrestling performance, I also feel like it is completely unnecessary for us to deliver a giant shellacking to whomever happens to get loose in the ring, because we do not know what is going on with that fan in that particular moment. But our priority always remains this: we need to stay safe. We need to protect each other. Me, the referee, if there's a manager, a valet, a supporting character out there, and my opponent from whatever it is that this fan is introducing into the ring. And that is an element of danger, which is why I think it is in our best interest to subdue and restrain and then wait for security to take over. I know that if a wild fan appeared in the ring, and I saw that as an opportunity to cause actual physical harm to another human being, and then after the fact found out that the person in question suffered from some kind of mental illness or some kind of developmental disability, I know that I would feel terrible about the fact that I had caused them injury when I had the option to simply restrain them and wait for security. Of course, I think in those situations, it's in your best interest to subdue them. But I don't think anything beyond that really teaches anybody a lesson about professional wrestling in this day and age. Regardless of what any ring announcer might say at the top of the event, and regardless of whatever fine print might be on the back of every event ticket when you are performing professional wrestling, you and I realize that taking physical liberties with a fan that gets loose in the ring is only opening you up to a legal liability, especially in this lawsuit-obsessed era in which we all live and perform. It is for this reason that I happen to think our priorities need to be viewed in this way. When a fan gets loose in the midst of one of our performances, they choose, uninvited, to interject themselves into a professional wrestling match. Guess what our priorities are? I'm going to keep myself safe, and I'm going to keep my opponent safe. The exact same two priorities I've got when there isn't a fan in the ring. And in furtherance of that, it might mean that I'm going to subdue and restrain that fan until assistance comes to help clear the ring, order can be restored, and the performance can resume. And if for any reason they are not coming in a timely fashion, suspend the performance entirely, at least until order in the room can be resumed. That might mean and include the fact that the match itself will be totally abandoned. I know there was a time and a place when the idea that we would just abandon a wrestling match because we were unable to maintain order was the absolute cardinal sin of professional wrestling because it violated the old tenets of kayfabe 1.0. But luckily for you and for me, those days are long gone.